Eminem, or should I say Slim Shady, is back with a new album, The Death of Slim Shady. Tim, I know you're so excited, or were so excited for this one. What are your initial thoughts?
Fucking amazing. Eminem is back. He is back on form. He's come back with fucking an absolute stonker of a concept album here. It's almost in the realm of relapse in the way that he's telling a story. He's explaining things as he goes through the whole thing from top to bottom. I think there's not really any misses at all on any tracks. I think this is a fucking fantastic album.
See, it's good because I'm here as well, and I'll probably give a more balanced view of this Eminem project. I do think, though, in comparison to his last few albums, this is definitely a step up.
Definitely.
It's much, much better. It feels more cohesive as a piece of work, as an album. And he even said yesterday, I think it was on Twitter, that that's what he wanted. He wanted people to listen to the full album as a story and as something that is designed to be a listening experience. So, should we jump into the tracks?
Yeah, can do. So first off, we had Renaissance, which is an amazing beat. The flow is fire throughout it. It's a great introduction to the album. Kind of gets you into the swing of things. Not really that long. More of an intro track than anything. I think it's about a minute long or so. Basically in that he's just stating facts. He says Kendrick's album was cool, but it didn't have any bangers. Wayne's album and Ye's couldn't tell you whose was lamer. Basically doing context on what people think of albums nowadays, saying that everybody hates on everybody. You motherfuckers would find something wrong with 36 Chambers, which we've got in the background over there. Fantastic album. He's basically saying, people nowadays, their standards are way too high. Moving off that, we went straight into Habits featuring White Gold. Now, White Gold has worked with them in the past. There's a lot of hooks that he does. He's a singy kind of guy, and it works very well.
I do want to say, straight into Habits, I was listening and I was thinking, why wasn't this one of the singles? Like, to me, Habits is better than Houdini or Toby.
No, Houdini's up there.
Straight away.
Houdini's up there.
Nah, Houdini's not up there. Houdini's not even top 3 tracks on this album for me.
I mean, at this point, I would agree with that, but Houdini's a great track.
This is what I mean, though. So why was that chosen as a single? Anyway,
I think Houdini was a guess who's back again. It's given his Slim Shady style.
I liked Habits because of the switching flows. It brought you different styles of within one song straight away. Yeah. And this was the proper first track of the album. So I was like, all right, what are we in for here?
And then Mr. Garrison shows up halfway through, which is amazing. Referencing Cartman on the last verse. Talking about, Bruce Jenner. This is where he's starting to talk about Caitlyn Jenner, which is a theme throughout the whole album. But that's from the Slim Shady aspect, not the Marshall Mathers aspect, which we'll get onto as we go through it. As we go into the next track, which was Trouble, and it went absolutely wild on this. There was a reference in that Marshall needs Slim Shady and Slim Shady needs Marshall in the way that they both coexist, and Christopher Reeves references starting out the gate there, which he had beef with back in 2004 for no real apparent reason, and it's continued to today, which shows that Slim Shady is back.
I do want to say, I get that this is Slim Shady, right, and this is what Eminem does, but for me, I just found this song a little bit just trying to be as offensive as possible on purpose, and I know that's kind of the whole point sometimes, but there was a little bit where it says, fuck blind people and deaf people, so the cripples, dumb paraplegic fucks. And I thought, I know that that's the whole point of Eminem, but maybe do it in a smarter way.
No, this is the point of the whole album. This is the concept that people are missing, is that it's Eminem shining a light on Slim Shady being dated, and the stuff that he's saying doesn't make any sense. So Marshall comes back in and says, why are you saying that shit? Why are you trying to get us cancelled? It doesn't make any sense. You're just saying it because it's funny. I don't understand why you're saying this. It's a concept that a lot of people, I think, are going to miss, but I'm going to touch on that at the end of the episode. We go on to Brand New Dance, which I was expecting to be a bit like Same Song and Dance. There's Christopher Reeves references all throughout it. There's horse references, which is how Christopher Reeves became paraplegic. And, there's horseback sounds and galloping and all that stuff. There's a singy hook, which is so much like old school Eminem. He's the hook god, not even rap god.
I've got wrote down for this, love the flow. It actually feels like an old school Eminem song, and it doesn't feel forced. It feels just natural, and I really liked Brand New Dance.
I absolutely love it. It feels nostalgic, even though it's new. There's Christopher Reeve's voice like old times, with the little hello, that whole thing, and fantastic.
And then we go on to Evil. I thought so far on the album, this was probably my least favourite track, I don't know why, but the I'm so evil part of it, I know it's a bit sarcastic, etc., but I just didn't really vibe with it. I didn't like this as much as the previous tracks. I don't think it was a bad track, though. This is the thing. And I think that maybe this was my point for a lot of this album. A lot of it I thought It's not bad, but it's also not my favourite tune, and this was one of those, and then there's a few standouts.
Yeah, fair enough. There's a lot of Caitlyn Jenner references in this one as well. He calls back to Debbie, which is his mum, talking to his mum about stuff in that track. And then also just, it's Slim Shady being Slim Shady. There's not much more to say about that. Then there's the All You Got skit, which is M struggling with Slim and trying to decide, what's going on. And Slim is clearly taking control at this point, which then puts us into Lucifer, which is a heavily Slim-based track. It's the same intro as Square Dance, which was on Relapse, so it's a little bit of a callback there. Very Relapse flow, very Relapse beat. It hits like crack, and it references his elevator in his house being broken, which again is a callback to Relapse.
You've mentioned Relapse a few times in this. Do you think this is M trying to put that right?
Yeah, I do, because that was such a flop. I feel like this might be his kind of, I'm going to do a concept album and I'm going to do it right. So people always speculated that Relapse 2 would come out, but I don't think it ever will. And this is probably the closest that we'll get to another concept album.
And then we go on, Antichrist.
Yes, Antichrist.
I liked this. I thought it had an incredible beat. So far on the album, this was one of my favourites. Pretty catchy. A couple more devil references thrown in there. He's loving that throughout this album. This evil devil kind of, I don't know, it's like a storyline that just goes throughout, like he's this evil man. And then there was a crazy line. I'm not sure who was the feature on this one, you'll know. Bizarre. With a very bizarre line, where Bruce Jenner at, I want to fuck that hoe. Where Megan the Stallion at, I want to suck that toe. Yeah. And that is the type of line that just makes me giggle. And I kind of appreciate it being in the track.
So Bizarre was one of his D12 alumni. He was in the group and he was the one who said, my grandmother sucked my dick and I didn't come. He was always about, his lyrics have always been just shock value. The thing on this track that I really liked was the cool effects between, this is when he started to do the mic effects for Slim Shady versus Eminem, and the voice that he puts on, somehow he's changing back to his old school voice and his current voice. But I thought it was just as he's progressed through life. I don't know how he's managed to redo that voice again. Moving on to Fuel, which was a JID feature, got me hyped. He's an amazing artist. I did think that meant that we would be getting Denzel Curry later, as he was featured in the Lyrical Lemonade video for Doomsday Part 2. But that unfortunately doesn't end up coming to light.
I do want to say as well, out of all the features on this album, I think this JID feature was the best. He had the best flow. He sounded accurate on the track. He sounded like he knew what he was on about. And do you know when someone just fits in? Yeah. When it works well and it didn't take away from it, whereas I feel like some later features weren't my favourite, but we'll get onto those.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to Road Rage, which was a Sky Piper hook, which was proper sick. I'm not familiar with him, but his voice lends to Eminem's style very well. There's a little section of Marshall arguing with Slim, and Slim saying how he's dyeing their hair, and Marshall struggling with him, and then it's coming to terms, and the beat switches to include Slim, which shows he's coming very soon. It flows very nicely into the next track, which is Houdini. And as we know, that's Guess Who's Back Again. That's entirely Slim Shady as Houdini. So I think that worked well in the album track list.
It works better as an album song, but it's a weird choice for a single.
Definitely, but we can just move on from that onto the breaking news skit, which is M is seemingly trying to cancel himself, not understanding why he's doing this kind of stuff, explaining a bit more of the concept, trying to get it through people's skulls that he doesn't actually mean this shit. It's him fighting with his old alter ego, and then going into Guilty Conscience 2.
Which I must admit, I was very excited for, because Guilty Conscience, the original, is one of my favourite Eminem songs. That battle with Dre in that track is just quality, and it's just up there. And this one was more Eminem versus Slim, which I loved. This is a cool concept, and he's done it very well without trying to copy the original, without trying to take away from it, but just a new, fantastic version of Guilty Conscience.
M's kind of questioning, why are you joking about paraplegics and stuff like you were saying earlier, and then Slim's reasoning that it's just a joke. And then my favourite part in this song is fuck deaf people, and then he goes on to do an impression of a deaf person. I fucking couldn't believe that. I thought, fuck me, he's fully gone in on this. There's a whole thing about, MGK, Christopher Reeves, Nick Cannon, Limp Bizkit, Benzino, Will Smith, Cannabis, Ja Rule. It almost seems like he's saying, look, I'm not going to fucking fire at you anymore. This is game over for you guys. I'm dropping the beef potentially. And then there's a skit at the end of him calling Paul, which is just classic Eminem. He loves those skits.
So I thought that track for me was one of the highlights of the album. Certainly up there.
Yeah.
One of my favourite tunes for sure. And then we went on to Head Honcho, which I really didn't rate that much. I thought the feature was pretty poor, to be honest.
I quite liked the feature. I thought Easy Mill's flow kind of goes with Eminem's style, and he's a recent Slim Shady Records alumni. He got signed not too long ago. Eminem did The Realist with him, which was a pretty cool track. But there were other people that have been signed to Shady Records before him that I would have liked to seen featured, maybe Griselda, people like that. Didn't see them anywhere on the album, so I'm a bit confused on that one, but I didn't hate the track overall.
Again, like I said earlier, I didn't hate it, but I thought it was one of my least favourites. And at this point in the album, I kind of felt like I'd been listening to the same thing for a while, if that makes sense. Like, it hadn't, I know there's been changes and stuff, but there wasn't, I don't know, I felt like I'd been listening to the same song for a couple songs in a row.
Yeah, that's fair.
I know different themes in there, different ideas, but I was quite impressed when we went on to the next song because I literally wrote that down as my notes. I feel like I've been listening to the same song. And then we go on to Temporary, which is completely different. And I was like, oh, he must have thought exactly the same thing.
Yeah, so the intro for this is him with Hailey, little recordings of them in the studio, clearly from like the early 2000s. And it just goes to show how good of a father is. He's messing with her, saying he loves her and she loves him and calling him a little monster and all this stuff. Really cute. Overall, it's just a nice track being dedicated to Hailey, pretty much.
I don't know if I'd go down the vibe of him being an amazing father based on the last track of the album.
Well, no, I know, yeah.
So
No, but he is a good father overall, though. In comparison to a lot of fathers out there, he clearly cares about his kids. But it's a big farewell to her. Like, bro loves to rap as if he's going to die or has already died. I don't know why he does that all the time, but he loves it. And then at the end, there's Hailey saying bitch, and then M's like, what did you say? And she says, I didn't say anything, bitch. She says, no cussing. And I just love that bit. That's really cute.
It is a cute little reference in there, and I respect it because it means a lot for a lot of the old school Eminem fans who have kind of watched those earlier albums, and a lot of song, obviously Hailey's song and many others dedicated to her. To have a new one like that with these little snippets feels a bit of an Easter egg. I respect it.
Moving off that onto Bad One. Whoa. So this is another White Gold feature, which his hooks are always very cool, but on this one I think he just missed the mark. I wasn't entirely enticed by the hook. Still a good hook, but not amazing. M's flow is very interesting, but I reckon it's probably one of the weaker tracks on the whole album. Yeah,
I'd agree. There's like a couple of references to previous beefs as well. He references the MGK beef.
Yeah.
What was the line? Have you got that written down?
But I gotta keep going. Tyson on Kelly. I bodied him twice, and already that little motherfucker's back throwing subs like a fight at a deli.
Like, pretty cool little line. I'm not against it, but I don't know. I feel like that didn't fit the vibe of the rest of the album. Like, a random shot at MGK isn't the vibe he was going for. And maybe he wants to get that in there, but I feel like that could have just been a different track, a different single at some point in time. Because I like the concept of it, and that didn't fit in with the album for me. But
there was another line in it that I really liked, which was brain is dead, space cadet, like when Ye forgets to take his meds, which I thought was very funny. There's Toby, which we've already spoken about. We don't need to go too much into that. And then it's on to the Guess Who's Back skit, which is fucking Ken Kniff. Ken Kniff from Connecticut is back. I was so hyped to hear this shit. The track being called Guess Who's Back, I was like, who's it going to be? He comes out, he does a little remix of Houdini like he's always done in the past. And yeah, it's just a funny track.
Yeah, it's a cool little skit, and I appreciate that. Is it Ken Kniff?
Ken Kniff.
Ken Kniff.
Yeah, from Connecticut.
See, this guy knows all the Easter eggs, right? I'm just like, oh, I recognize that from an earlier album. That's about as far as I go. But no, it was cool to see it. And then it led into the last track of the album, Somebody Save Me, which is a super introspective track about Eminem's relationship with his kids. And I really appreciated this. I felt like it was a fitting end to the album. And I don't know, it felt like he was being raw and real and emotional, which is pretty rare given the rest of the track list and what's come previous. I like to see this.
The intro to the track was really heartbreaking, which is Elena coming in and telling him to wake up and saying, eat something, wake up. And he's like, I'm sleepy, baby, leave me alone, go out, close the door behind you. Because this is clearly him on his sleeping med addiction. And he's, this is him setting up the track and apologizing to his kids for not being there, for being more addicted to drugs than he was loving them. He loved his drugs more than he loved them. It's a heart-wrenching track through and through, but M is very good at pulling on those heartstrings. And I think it's good that he's opened up and admitted these things, and I think it's something that he's wanted to get off his chest for a while, but just never been able to put the pen to paper to get it out properly.
And he did a good job of it here.
Yeah, really good
I was
job.
very impressed. So that's it, Tim. The new Eminem album. What did you think of the album from top to bottom?
It was fucking amazing. Bro is back on form. Stanza eating really fucking good. He's a hook king. This is proved throughout this whole album. There's about 4 or 5 tracks with the best hooks I've heard in years. And I absolutely adored it.
I thought it was Eminem's best album since Kamikaze, at least. I think it was better than Kamikaze as well.
Better than Revival.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
definitely.
even further back than that. I think you're probably thinking since Recovery.
Well, I think it's better than Recovery as well.
Then maybe Relapse.
Yeah, I think it's right.
All the way
it's
back
M's
to
best
Relapse.
album since Relapse, maybe. But the only problem is I don't think that's that hard.
Yeah, not massively.
So it takes him back to form. For me, it's very good. Is it amazing? No. And we're going to do a rating, young Timothy.
Oh, yes, we are. Yes, we are, Joe. I'm going to go in with a 9 out of 10, straight up, out the gate. And I think that can be raised to a 10 out of 10 once I've listened to it a few more times, got a couple of the double entendres under my belt, figured out what he's actually talking about on the tracks. Easily one of the best Eminem albums that he's released.
I like it, but for me, there is absolutely no way it's a 9 or 10 out of 10. I apologise massively. It still doesn't match up to his first 3 albums. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
7?
Yeah, I think that's a good rating. And I'm actually not even been tight. Maybe it could sneak up. I agree. Once I've listened to it a few more times and I've kind of digested some of the references, could go up to a 7.5 or an 8. But for me, right now, it's sitting at a 7 out of 10. And I'm sure it's one we'll revisit.
Oh, so, definitely. Yeah.
Well,
winner.
That's it. Thank you very much for watching.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all the shit that you'd usually do. Really appreciate it.
Peace.
See you later.